Hello, this is Caitlin Rule, and this is my case study for EDL 851. So to summarize the case, there is a principal and a teacher, Mrs. Stevens. We're not quite sure which school or where the school is located. But what happened is the principal was renewing evaluations and looking at the results from this year. Mrs. Stevens was noticeably struggling and really standing out to him. When he approached Mrs. Stevens about the issue, she responded very defensively and hostile to suggestions. So he tried evaluating her one more time and just noticed the same results. So he marked down that her contract would not be renewed. When he brought this up to Mrs. Stevens, she got very upset, claiming she's had no real supervision and is willing to take this issue to court if the paperwork is turned in. So at the moment, there's no legal issues that I saw were addressed. Some ethical issues, though. In my opinion, the principal jumped to the conclusion of not renewing the contract instead of taking steps to try and help her improve. This could be considered discriminatory if Ms. Stevens tries to take it to court. Mrs. Stevens acted defensive every time the principal tried to give her feedback, so that made the principal feel like he had no choice in the decision he made. So to conclude this whole case study in one sentence, it was decided by the principal that the teacher, Mrs. Stevens, would not have her contract renewed due to the results of her poor evaluations and negative attitude towards improvement. So to synthesize the facts, the people that were presented were the principal, who has made several classroom visitations, so he's obviously in and out of the classrooms. He's offered small suggestions during the conference. It stated that he wasn't giving instant feedback, and I noticed he jumped to conclusions to avoid future conflict. Then there's Mrs. Stevens. She is a teacher. It said that she is very intelligent, great background in her subject matter. However, she has no pupil control. She's hostile towards feedback and gets very defensive. Then there's students, and the students in Ms. Stevens' class were not very involved in the learning. They acted very disinterested, hardly bothered by responding to the teacher, and they had limited participation. The place was not stated, and the program was not stated. So to review and prioritize the information, could the conflict, the situation, or the decision be damaging to stakeholders or the community? Yes, this could begin to create a very negative climate and culture, especially if the teacher starts talking to other teachers and creating just negativity. What individuals and groups have an important stake in the outcome? I put everyone down: the principal, Mrs. Stevens, other teachers, staff, and students. Have all the relevant stakeholders been consulted? Well, there was no communication with her supervisor. I think if he would have talked to her supervisor and see if she sees the same thing, then maybe there would be a different conversation there. Can I learn more about the situation? Yes, I could learn more about the steps the principal and supervisor had taken to get to this decision. Was she instructed to observe other teachers in the past? Was she sent to professional developments to work on pupil control and involvement? We don't know those answers. Do I know enough to make a decision? Well, only using the information I was given, yes. So to identify some options and consequences that come with them. Option 1 would be to take no action, just simply follow through with not renewing Mrs. Stevens' contract. Some consequences that would come from that would be Ms. Stevens taking the situation to court and creating a hostile environment. Option 2, consult with her supervisor, which I'm taking, in my opinion, as like her mentor, and create a plan to set goals with Mrs. Stevens and try different professional developments to improve. Maybe I would teach a lesson or have Mrs. Stevens observe another teacher teach her subject in a way that involves the students more. Some consequences could be Ms. Stevens continues to reject feedback and consider any help from others. Option 3 would be to tell Ms. Stevens you won't be turning in the paperwork and she can continue to teach the way she's been teaching. But the consequences with that would be the students continue to not benefit from any teachings from Mrs. Stevens, and the principal would probably lose her respect. So some pros and cons that go with those. Option 1, a pro could be you solve a conflict by getting rid of a negative teacher. However, a con would be you set an example to the other teachers that evaluations can be scary and threatening. Option 2, some pros, possibly help Ms. Stevens grow and succeed in her teaching, create a better communication between administration and teachers, and maybe set up the students for success. Some cons, Mrs. Stevens could continue to reject feedback or consider any help from others, or she could spend a lot of time, or we could spend a lot of time on a teacher who doesn't want to change. Option 3, some pros would be you would keep a teacher, you would keep Mrs. Stevens happy, but some cons would be the principal would lose respect from staff and look like a pushover, and students would continue to not be involved in the learning. So in my opinion, the best option would be option 2. So because this opinion would be implemented with the greatest care and attention to all the stakeholders. You would be giving Ms. Stevens another chance. You would find a best way to communicate positively with your staff, find new ways to help my teachers if they're feeling unsupported, and reflect on myself and how I can help my teachers not give up on them so quickly next time. How I would implement my decision. First, I would create a plan quickly. So you would need to move quickly with how negative things are in the moment. I would create a plan quickly by speaking with this Mrs. Stevens' supervisor, getting her feedback, then teachers who she can observe that are in her same subject. Then I would set up another conference with Ms. Stevens. Depending on what the supervisor says, maybe I would have the supervisor in the meeting as well to maybe make her feel a little more comfortable, to know it's not just me and her and letting her feel like I'm not attacking her. Discuss my plan and options to take to help Ms. Stevens grow and improve to meet those requirements, and to give Ms. Stevens a choice on where to begin, then help her in those next steps. So if she would like to begin observing other teachers in her subject, or maybe she would like to begin with going to professional development, there are different options there. To think about what may happen, I have Ms. Stevens could accept the options and grow as a teacher. She could refuse the options of improvement, or she could say, okay, I'll do it, but just go through the motions and end up with no takeaways and no improvement. Who would need to know? Well, Mrs. Stevens, I think her supervisor would be important to know, and any teachers I plan on having her observe. Determine if you can deal on your own with the persons involved. I would be able to deal with Mrs. Stevens independently as long as our communication would stay calm and clear. With how it ended in the last meeting, it might be good to have another person sit in, but I think to clear the air, we would need to have another independent communication. So to warn and not threaten, discussing those options with Mrs. Stevens can show her I'm willing to work with her instead of just give up on her and get rid of her. So if those don't work, and I need a plan B. If Ms. Stevens refuses to do any of the options of improvement and continues to be defensive towards me, I'll have no choice but to let her. If Ms. Stevens goes through the options I have given her and they don't seem to be working, I would research for more professional development, teachers to observe, or try having someone else come in and observe her to see if they have any ideas, so that I know I have taken all the steps I can to help her, and if it's to let her go. And that is it. Thank you.